Hello guys, welcome to the channel. It's TPM5 talking about some NBA trade news and rumors. I'm going to be covering the Zach LaVine trade rumors with the Detroit Pistons. So in this mock trade I've got here, the Pistons would get the two-time All-Star. In exchange, the Bulls would receive Bojan Bogdanovic, Joe Harris in his expiring deal, Marcus Sasser as some sort of a replacement as one of those blue chip players that the Bulls were after from the Pistons, which I'll cover in a second, and then a 2026 heavily protected first-round draft pick. So the rumors stem from a reporter from The Athletic by the name of James Edwards, discussing the fact that the Pistons were interested in the Chicago Bulls two-time All-Star. The Bulls, however, in return would have wanted a blue chipper, which was defined as Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Oscar Thompson, and Jalen Duren. However, Detroit wasn't looking to move any of these pieces. Now, it is quite a shame for the Bulls. Zach LaVine's trade value was much higher at the previous deadline. They decided to hold him and not move, and now his value really has fallen. But I'm going to cover the Detroit Pistons side of this trade if it were to happen, and then talk about something from the Bulls perspective, and then that'll be the plan for the video. So Zach LaVine obviously has been a shell of himself this season, with his points per game dropping by 5.3, and then also his efficiency taking a dip all across the board practically, with the exclusion of free throws. However, for the Detroit Pistons, who have been a historically bad team, currently sitting at 5 wins and 39 losses, on pace to become the worst team in terms of wins in an 82-game season. They definitely are looking to try and consolidate the team to keep this proud franchise away from that kind of a record. Now, I guess there are two sides to view this from. You have the building for next season and beyond, because the team with Cade, Ivey, LaVine, Stewart or Oswald Thompson, and then also Jalen Duren would be pretty good and has some growth potential over the next 2 to 3 years. However, obviously you don't want to give up too much, hence why Sasser, the expiring deal of Joe Harris, who's barely played, Bojan Bogdanovic, who has his deal next year, which is really a small amount guaranteed, so in some senses trading the salary now for someone like LaVine does make a bit of sense. And then a heavily protected first round draft pick isn't a massive deal to cough up for a player like Zach LaVine, who has during his peak averaged 27 points, 5 rebounds and 5 assists only a few short years ago. Now, I guess the Detroit Pistons need to weigh up the short term, which is, I guess, the pain of having a terrible record hanging over the franchise's head, which it might well receive, as I mentioned before, or building for the future and weighing up whether adding Zach LaVine in his gigantic contract is worth doing for the short-term gain, and if he really fits into their future. Now that's the question for the video, Bulls and Pistons fans. What do you think of a potential trade that's been mentioned in the rumors? Obviously, the value of Zach LaVine has fallen quite a bit, and then Detroit, you're in the middle of a rebuild. Does it make sense to add Zach LaVine? I'm not necessarily too sure, so I'd like to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. And while you're there, also like and subscribe. It helps me out. And we'll continue. So with the Bulls that get Bojan Bogdanovic, who has now averaged or is averaging 20 points per game, if he can hold that, he would have done that 3 times in his career quietly. One of the more underrated kind of role players, above average starters in the league, can come in and give you a lot of shooting and a lot of offense, which, if the Bulls are to launch an assault on a playoff spot, is something they can definitely use off of the bench in high minutes, or potentially find a way to start him. Then you get the contract of Joe Harris, which is an expiring one, and it's my belief that there are bird rights on that, so you will have control over him. He's someone who has shot as high as 47.5% from 3 back in those Brooklyn Nets Big 3 days, so he's another guy that has value. And then when you look at Marcus Sasser, or actually another guy that can come in and play, obviously hasn't played too much for Detroit, so might be a little bit rusty. And then you look at Marcus Sasser, someone who's young, fulfills that kind of blue chip thing they're after. But even then, I think in this mock trade, I'm being pretty generous by giving the Bulls that kind of a player. And you get that top 10 protected pick. So if the Detroit Pistons really begin to turn it around in a couple years, you might be looking at something like pick 15 to round off the trade. So that a couple of things for the now and a couple of things for the future. So that will do it for the video. I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say about this potential trade. Pistons, Bulls fans, would you both pull the trigger on a kind of move like this? Obviously, if it was me, I probably wouldn't if I was Detroit. It's more about Detroit saying no than Chicago, given Zach's terrible contract. But that's it for the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.